Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, is rural crime falling off the radar in some police forces?
Huge challenges exist at force level, and quite recently we've seen what I would describe as a sort of material and ideological disinvestment from rural policing across territorial forces.
We'll have more on a mixed picture across the country later. First, as party conference season continues, the Conservatives are meeting in Manchester. Over the past few weeks, we've heard about all the main parties' policies on food, farming and rural communities. Today, the Shadow Environment Secretary, Victoria Atkins, will outline her priorities. She told Kaz Graham what's on her agenda.
First and foremost, we will axe the family farm and the family firm taxes. I want to give everybody that solemn promise because I want to give people that confidence that when we're back in government, they will not have this burden on their shoulders. But as importantly as that, I also want to give people some hope for the future. You know, this time will pass. And if people are able to keep their heads above water, and I know that's tricky at the moment, but if people are able to keep their businesses going, then I think we will have a very positive future with some of the ideas that are coming through in our policy formation, some of which I'm going to be setting out today. But these policies that we will be announcing are coming from farmers. You know, my team and I have been travelling around the country over the last 12 months, asking you for what you think will work, what needs to change, what's working at the moment. And from that, you're going to see, I hope, a really interesting body of policies, carefully thought through policies, looking at everything from whether the system of regulation is working for or against rural communities, through to the opportunities for younger people joining the food and farming industry, and of course our vital coastal industry as well.
Kemi Badenoch says the Conservative Party will scrap the 2008 Climate Change Act that sets targets for reducing carbon emissions. What impact will that have on the farming industry? Because all farm support pretty well in England is now based on environmental improvement, things like reducing emissions. Will you tear up ELMS, the environmental land management schemes brought in and championed by the last government?
Well, of course, farming is facing an even more immediate emergency at the moment because this government so shockingly stopped SFI overnight. We have another problem coming up at the end of this year as countryside stewardship schemes begin to fall out. We've got thousands of farmers that are affected by that. And look, we are seeing today and every day the impacts of climate change. And this piece of legislation from 20 years ago, very well intentioned, but I don't think anyone can claim it is working because as this piece of legislation has been in place, even though we've done everything we can to make it work, it hasn't had the impact we would want to see across the world. Emissions are continuing to rise, temperatures are increasing. So what we are saying is, look, we absolutely want to tackle climate change, but we have to see what we can do now to change these regulations so that they work with people such as our farmers who are trying to improve the environment, but to do so in a way that also permits innovation and, importantly, provides cheap energy.
The Shadow Environment Secretary, Victoria Atkins. The warmest summer on record for the UK has meant an early and heavy harvest in British vineyards. And after hours of sunshine, the 2025 vintage looks set to be promising. It could be one of the best years ever for winemakers. Bob Huckenholz's been to see the harvest in progress at one of the largest vineyards in the country.
The volunteers are hard at work picking one of 16 varieties of grape produced at Aitney Green Vineyard near Wolverhampton.
This variety is called Rondo. We've been growing it for about 20 years now. Probably one of the big reasons the English red wines are, widely acknowledged as being decent now. It's a hybrid, so it's early ripening, fairly disease-free, gives good, rich, robust colours, and very high yielding as well.
Clive Vickers is the owner. His late father, Martin, started the business in 1983 with half an acre. Now the vineyard has grown to 30 acres, producing grapes for 250,000 bottles a year.
This year looks to be one of the best we've ever had. We've got the perfect blend of quantity and quality. Got a nice, decent early bud burst, no spring frost, great fruit set, and then just when they've needed it, they've had the perfect high temperatures, over 28 degrees regularly. They don't need much rain, and they didn't get much. They're deep rooting, 60, 80 feet, so the leaves are dark green when everything else looks burnt off. They've thoroughly enjoyed the growing season, and which came through to a really early harvest as well.
What will it actually have done for the taste of the wine when it's finally processed and the quality of the grape?
Well, of course, we taste as we're picking, but the final proof is always what comes out post-fermentation when we get the flavours in the tank coming through towards Christmas. But having been doing it for this long, we're sure it's a really high-quality year. It looks absolutely fantastic.
So we're here in South Staffordshire. There are vineyards all over the country. Will they have had a similar experience to you, do you think?
I think so. The story is largely that it's been the same all across, from Kent all the way up to Yorkshire, across to the east, Lincolnshire. We make wine for a lot of the growers, and all across Wales as well. One or two slight tinges of frost in May for one or two, and maybe a bit of drought stress for some of the new vineyards that aren't fully developed yet in terms of root system. But on the whole, it's, blanket approach to the weather. It's been fantastic.
Trevor Thompson is one of the regular pickers.
I've done years where we've had crop or a harvest. It decays if it's not a brilliant harvest. But these have been decent. These have been very good.
You've been here a few years. What is the appeal? Because you do it for free, don't you?
I think there's an element of being out in the open air. I don't think I could do it forever. But because it is a short period, you can make your contribution. And you do get a bottle of wine at the end of the day, which is quite nice.
Ha'penny Green has invested heavily in processing equipment in recent years.
Well, we now make wine for around 100 vineyards across 28 counties. So we do contract wine making as well as making the Ha'penny Green brand. And we've invested in this new state-of-the-art press that takes 18 tonnes of grapes in one batch. It's all about throughput, really. We try and press the grapes as they're picked in the same day or very early the next morning. And having that ability to get the throughput is essential to the quality of the wine.
Clive Vickers there on this year's grape harvest. Now, all this week, we're going to be looking at rural crime. The latest figures from the insurers NFU Mutual show a mixed picture. They say the overall value of claims is down 16.5% year on year, but tractor and trailer thefts are up, as is livestock theft. Dr. Kate Tudor, an Associate Professor of Criminology at Durham University, believes cuts to police forces are having an impact on their ability to fight rural crime. She says county forces are having to make difficult decisions about resources. On a positive note, Dr. Tudor told me the advent of a national rural crime unit is helping.
The National Rural Crime Team have made a huge difference in a number of different ways. So they have the National Construction and Agricultural Theft Team, which have been incredibly effective at improving the picture around machinery thefts and recoveries. And they really have made a material difference to the way that those types of rural crimes are policed. We've also seen the introduction of the livestock theft team, who've really improved knowledge and skills across policing nationally. And then we've also seen the significant improvement in coordination between forces and sharing information as well between forces. But the national team aren't an operational arm of the police. They can support territorial forces, but they don't actually carry out operations themselves. So huge challenges exist at force level. And quite recently, we've seen what I would describe as a sort of material and ideological disinvestment from rural policing across territorial forces. So whilst some forces are well resourced, others don't have vehicles. We've actually seen rural crime teams being disbanded altogether within particular forces as well.
Forces might say we have to make difficult decisions and cuts are coming across the board, so this is something we can't afford.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And the picture across policing is quite bleak at the moment, to be honest, in terms of resourcing. And at a strategic level within policing, you can understand how these decisions are made, because rural policing comes up against things like child sexual exploitation, drugs, etc. But what I would say is that when we dig into the nominals that are involved in this type of crime, quite often they have a foot in those other offence types, things like drug supply, and often quite high level drug supply as well. So if you're thinking about the kind of people that you want to target, you can target them through these acquisitive offences that are being perpetrated in rural areas.
Because the scale of these crimes can be quite high. We reported on the programme recently about an organised crime gang, 7 people, sentenced to a total of 25 years in prison. They'd stolen around £10 million worth of farm machinery and vehicles. Is there more involvement of that type of person now?
I think there always has been, to be honest. It is a very mixed picture about around the types of people that are involved in this kind of crime. And obviously you do have your lower-level local offenders. But if you think about the types of things that they're stealing and the markets that they're servicing with the goods that they steal, there inevitably has to be a significant degree of organisation, because these pieces of machinery are being stolen, often exported to markets overseas. And that requires quite significant infrastructural arrangements and networks. So yes, we have domestic OCGs involved in this type of crime, but we also have transnational organised crime involved.
Generally speaking, are things improving or not?
It's a very mixed picture. We're taking real steps in the right direction. One of the huge problems that we face in relation to rural crime is actually knowing what it is and how much of it actually occurs. That isn't just dependent on better data systems. It's also dependent on the participation of rural communities, because if they don't report, the police can't know. And so that's the most important first step towards improving rural policing. Report everything so that is able to be factored into decision making.
Dr. Kate Tudor, and we'll have more on rural crime all week. But that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Sarah Swadling, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.